Open world games are always a hit or miss. They either become the great masterpieces that you remember for eternity, or they just be titled a slop or cheap knockoff version of something very popular and would be thrown away into the dumpster fire. This is the case with many open world games that were made by studios that had little to no experience in making them, or just do it for the quick money grab and not worry much about their reputation. But one such studio decided to take that risk despite not having made any open world games before, and it paid off massively, marking a whole new feat for them, and that studio is called Guerrilla Games. The game that they made is Horizon Zero Dawn. Now keep in mind, for them to release their first open world game in the year 2017 was probably the biggest risk factor, as they'll be competing with other massive releases such as Breath of the Wild, Resident Evil 7, Nier Automata, and many more. Not to mention that there was a similar game that was already announced and released called Enslaved, and it was nearly scrapped for another game that they had in mind. But when presenting it to the board of executives at Sony, they got more praise for Horizon's concept than the other one. But how did they pull it off? Well, in this video, we'll be looking at what made Horizon Zero Dawn a huge success for the company's first time at open world games. The opening scene speaks for itself. You start at a hut on the mountainside where a man carries his daughter to the mountaintops as a tradition when it comes to naming a child, which is followed by the village called the Embrace, home to the Nora tribe. While exploring, you get to see the beauty of the world that you would be exploring, and it's only a part of it, from the world of lush greenery fields to the snowy white mountain tops to nature's wildlife, but the most important one, the wildlife of machines.
And steel. It is one thing to hunt a beast, another to hunt a machine. You must be humble and respect their power. I'll teach you this one day.
We'll learn more on how they came into existence later on. Once at the mountains, you are met with High Matriarch Tirsa, whose name resembles close to Mother Teresa, the infamous nun who took care of many people regardless of their age, status, or any of that sort. And the same goes here, where she approves this tradition despite referring to Rost and the child as an outcast. You'll be hearing these terms pretty often, so you don't need to worry about it, as we'll be delving into them later on. Once the time arrives, the man whose name, thanks to the subtitles we know as Rost, proceeds to name the child. The protagonist will be playing as Aloy, derived from the word alloy, which means a combination of two or more metals, which could mean that the child possesses something that links two or more things together. While Rost is derived from the word rust, which is a corrosive part of metal known to damage and break even the strongest metals in existence, indicating that he used to be someone strong in the past, but because of something he's now left to rust. After the naming ceremony, the other high matriarchs arrived and went against the ceremony, stating that the child was a curse and had no mother. But both Tirsa and Rost stood firm and vowed to protect her no matter what. As the camera pans out, the title card appears, thus embarking the journey of Aloy. Aloy, while growing up from a child to an adult, never had any interaction with the outside world other than with Rost. Mainly, that had to do with the outcast status that was bestowed upon her since birth, which we see being shown as adults forces the children away from her due to that status. Because of that, she is angrily storms out of the place only to lose her footing and fall into a cave. But not just any cave, an abandoned bunker of sort, containing advanced technology that is still operational to some extent, and the remains of what people of today call as the old ones, people who were alive before something went awry and took them all out, thus resulting in nature reclaiming back their territory. This is where Aloy discovers the device that the old ones used to use for several purposes, and it's called the focus. While exploring, we can use the focus to listen to audio logs of several people during the times when they were alive. Some of them were wholesome, like this one who is wishing his son a happy birthday.
You think I want it this way? It's the best I can do. He's right behind you. Hi! Happy birthday, Isaac. Daddy sure does love his little big man. Look, Daddy can't be there with you and Mom, but we can still have a party, right? Sure we can.
Show me. Show me again.
I can do. He's right behind you. Hi! Happy birthday, Isaac. Daddy sure does love his little big man. Look, Daddy can't be there with you and Mom, but we can still have a party, right? Sure we can.
While some are more sinister, with this one reciting his final words before killing himself.
I saw them lining up in the community room. Like cattle in a slaughterhouse, but smiling at each other. Shauna handing out meds like being alive is some kind of pain to be eased. Well, not me. I don't want to go quiet. I don't want to trail off. I want a period at the end of my life sentence, not an ellipses. Hell. An exclamation mark. So if it upsets whoever finds this, too bad. I don't know anyone, anything, anymore.
Much later, we are introduced to the puzzle, if you could call it that, because of how easy it is. It's just to show how puzzles normally work in Horizon, and if you're worried about it, don't be, since most of the puzzles are quite easy. Most, by the way, not all of them. After navigating through, you finally make it to the exit where you can hear Ross shouting your name. Making it out, you realize that you ventured into something that is forbidden to be ventured according to law, often referred to as the Devil's Place. Ross sees that you acquired the focus and tries to take it away, but Aloy doesn't allow it. And seeing how persistent she is, Ross decides to train her in the ways of the warrior, and thus begins our introduction to the combat system of the game. Now the combat system is pretty much the basics. You have your healing, which you can harvest by crafting health potions or collecting medicinal herbs. They too get stored like the health bar, but they can stack, and the amount you stack will depend on the skill tree level, which is something that I'll get to in a bit. The maximum amount of healing health bars that you can have is 4 when maxed out on skill tree, and the amount you can store directly correlates to the amount of health that you can recover. Then you got your weapons to deal with. Your starting weapon, the bow, as your main offensive weapons, which can be used to aim at machines' weaker parts that in return cause a great deal of damage. There are different kinds of bows, some used for long range attacks that deal high damage but have a slow firing rate, while some can be used at a much faster pace but don't deal much damage. The type of arrows you get to use will depend on the type of bow, but usually you'll get a hardpoint arrow that is strong enough to rip components off a machine, which causes high damage, or elemental arrow that deals in inflicting some elementals like fire, freeze, corruption, or shock to the machine, making them more vulnerable to critical attacks. Spear is used for long-range attacks that can deal a great amount of damage, but can put you at a risk of getting hit in return. They are also the ones that can help you either override a machine or be used as your ally, or perform a silent strike to deal massive damage, and sometimes even killing them in one swift. Tripcaster allows you to place traps in particular areas, allowing for more strategic planning when it comes to any attack, and most of them deal elemental damage with the exception of being the blast one that only deals normal damage. Slingshot is more like the ancient weapon of a shotgun, dealing huge damage in certain areas till the machine gets affected by it, or again can be used to deal elemental damage. And the last but not the least, the ropecaster, which is similar to the tripcaster, but instead of setting traps, it pins down the machine, which makes them immobile for a certain amount of time. This is useful against machines that are really large or machines that can fly. The only downside to this is once you start damaging them while they're pinned down, it tends to remove the effects of the rope cast pretty quickly. So the only two benefits are used to either start inflicting the elemental damage through the slingshot, and once affected can be used to our advantage, or override them if you have overridden enough cauldrons to do so, which I'll get to in a bit. These are the basics of weapons that you'll get access to early on, but as time progresses, you'll be unlocking more advanced weapons, which I'll get to in a bit. During the training, it appears that someone was practicing for climbing but unfortunately slips down into a herd of machines. While Ross doesn't wish to interact with them as it would break the rule of outcast interacting with others, Aloy differs otherwise and rushes to save him. This is where you get to see the use of focus in action, as they are used to identify different machines, their weak points, and if they're patrolling, the paths can also be highlighted, giving us plans to set traps along their path. It feels like the equipments were made for the machines and not for the humans. They're also used in certain situations like finding certain resources or analyzing audio and video logs that were left by the old ones, or are being used by other people if any. While it doesn't sound much, it does act crucial, especially in this game's setting. After rescuing the person whose name we get to know as Teb, he then gets taken back by other people, but of course not without them mocking us, which makes Aloy upset and leaving without Rost's help to travel back home. On the way, she gets bullied again, and this time we are introduced to flashbacks, a set of actions that you can optionally choose to respond to someone's actions or request. A fist indicates that your actions being rude or aggressive to other people, and this often gives a bad impression about you as a person, as they will assume that you are some hot-headed person with no self-control of anger. A brain indicates that your action is being clever, in which a way it will impress a person around you and how you approached it. It gives mixed results, with some praising it and some having thoughts on whether it's right or wrong. A heart indicates your actions being compassionate and kind to other person, often leaving the impression of happiness and people knowing that you're a very kind person who doesn't deserve the treatment that you're getting for now. While most of these options don't have any form of consequences, there are some that do, but to a minute extent and doesn't affect the storyline much. Just different dialogues would appear if you so meet the person next time. Here the three options would be to either throw the rock back at the child's head, which gets interrupted by Rost, throw it in such a way that it knocks out the other stone that he is about to throw at you, which leaves a surprised impression on everyone else, or just keep the stone to yourself, which brings compassion from other people's perspective, and they will prevent the guy from throwing another stone at you. Regardless of which you pick, Aloy will still be pissed about why she's an outcast and demands an answer for, to which Ross does seem to know about it but doesn't want her to answer it. It seems like he wants her to earn the answer, which introduced the concept of the Proving, an event that's hosted once a year by the Nora tribe members, where everyone, including outcasts, are to compete with each other trainees in a survival and combat situation, and the person to finish first gets to become a soldier of the Nora tribe, which will give her an excuse to know why she was an outcast since birth. She doesn't mind the title she claims, but more of the main purpose on why she was cast out is what she needs. Thus her training begins from climbing rocks to taking down machines on her own, and many more. She was made ready to face the Proving, but just before that there's one more lesson that Rust has to teach her, which requires Aloy to make some fire arrows through crafting and be ready during nighttime, where we're met with the Sawtooth outside the Embrace. This is to give the taste of what our life would be outside the walls, opening to a whole new possibility of monsters, which I will discuss later on. After taking down the Sawtooth, the final lesson was revealed for Aloy, which is to be selfless in her actions. What she does shouldn't always be for herself, but for others as well. Soon after, during the Proving, Ross decides to leave for good, as since Aloy would become a Nora tribe member, she wouldn't be able to communicate with him as she is still an outcast, despite Aloy assuring not so. Ross doesn't stay longer to listen to it. Once inside the Embrace, you're met with Teb, who apparently was the boy you saved at the tutorial stage, and out of gratitude he creates a piece of clothing for you to wear. And it's also where you get to know that there are more than just the Nora tribe who are taking part in this, which leads to two more tribes being introduced, the Karja and the Osram. And now I feel it's the best time to talk about the three main tribes in this game. First we got the Nora tribe, our main tribe which Aloy and Ross belong to, and they're both direct descendants of the old ones and live exactly at the heart of their existence, with them worshipping the All-Mother as their creator, and often remind themselves not to be like the old ones when they prioritize themselves over others, and according to them was the reason why they were wiped off from the world. They are strict in their traditions and hold no exception to anyone regardless of their status or reputation. They often consider the place of the Old One as a cursed ground and forbids anyone to come in contact with them, with the only exception being the All-Mother's Mountain. This wasn't supported by a few people, which led to them being exiled from the land and forming their own tribes. Next we got the Kaja tribe, which originated from the Nora tribe but were exiled due to their likings of the technology used by the old ones. They aren't afraid to venture in places where Nora tribe would consider forsaken and cursed, but that's the least of their concern. They didn't start with a good history, as they believed that sacrificing human life to the sun would bring good fortune upon all the people, which led to them attacking not just Nora tribe but the Osram tribe as well, to acquire people for the sacrifice. This all changed when the son of the old king killed him and put an end to the massacre, which is the reason why they arrived to Nora after so long to apologize for their actions. Yet, despite them turning over a new leaf, there are still a handful who believe that what he did was wrong and a punishment worse than death is deserved for all Karja members who supported that raid, even if it's for the right thing for the other tribe members. And last but not least, we have the Osram tribe. While their origins are not confirmed, we do know that they too were attacked by the Karja tribe, thus forming some form of acquaintance with the Nora tribe as well. Their place is well known for acquiring some of the best trades and equipments in all of Horizon Land, which leads to their place being a prime trade center even for us later on in the game, as there are traders who are willing to trade items that would otherwise be untradeable with other regular traders. They are also masters at tinkering weapons, which leads them to creating their own weapons which are far more advanced than any other tribes, which we'll get to in a bit. They also take pride in their hunting abilities, which leads them to make their own hunting lodge, where the best of the best hunters gather to compete who can stand victorious among them all. They are also much more advanced in their technology and craftsmanship due to their interest in delving into many forbidden places, thus acquiring much better gear for better defenses and offenses, similar if not greater than that of Karja tribe. These are the main tribes, and while there are some minor ones that I have missed, I will include them when the time is right. After you experience the opening ceremony of the Proving and meeting some new allies and people of interest like the awesome leader Errant who stopped the people from rioting over the apology of the Karja tribe, and someone else who had a focus called Olin. Not much is known about them for now, so let's just skip to the chase. We meet Bast, the same kid who threw rock at us when we were kids, and is still annoying as ever, and we can confront him with either dialogue options, which doesn't give much difference anyways. After that, we head to the Provings ground where the task is simple: get a trophy from a grazer and make it to the end. Despite Aloy being dead last because of Bast's cheating, she made it up by going through a risky shortcut which caused her to end up in the first place and be labeled as a brave. But soon after, the members were ambushed by a group of Karja, and Rast enters at the last minute to save Aloy before getting killed, making Aloy among the few surviving members of the Proving. While we're on the topic of Aloy becoming brave, it's best we first understand the hierarchy of how things work in the Nora tribe before getting back on track. First, we have the outcast, which, as the name implies, are people who have been casted out for either a certain amount of time or indefinitely. The reason of them being an outcast can vary from committing a crime to breaking a taboo to visiting forbidden places without permissions and so on. They would often be looked down on and would not be allowed to communicate with anyone, as doing so will only cause more trouble for the outcast as well as for the ones who communicate with them. Almost on the level of being exiled, but marginally better since they are still recognized as a Nora tribe member. Next we have commoners, which is basically every Nora tribe member that isn't a soldier or an outcast. These are the people who do daily chores to satisfy themselves or others, merchants and traders who trade, stitchers who stitch clothes or garments, families, children, and many more fall under this category. Next up are braves, which is their term for soldiers. They are the ones who will act in defense or offense to the Nora tribe members. Their duty is to defend the embrace or to capture the wild as long as it's within the sacred boundaries and not beyond, anything what a modern soldier would do for their country. War Chief is self-explanatory. They're leaders of the group of braves or the whole brave army, and they are often more powerful than a normal brave. There aren't a lot in this game except for one which I'll get to pretty soon, but apart from that, they possess exceptional combat skills and strategic approaches, some of which I believe Aloy herself couldn't have come up with on her own. They are also the ones to initiate requests for venturing into forbidden places just to take their enemies down. Matriarchs are Nora women who have at least 2 living generations of progeny and are the second highest of the tribe. They are the ones whom many can go for advice, but if it's a decision to be made, they aren't the ones to be approached. High matriarchs are Nora women who have at least 3 generations of living progeny and are the highest ranking members in the tribe. They are the ones whose rules and laws are to be made and obeyed by all tribe members. They are also the only ones authorized to interact with an outcast, provided they give permission to the outcast the same. These are so far the main hierarchy tribe for the Nora tribe, and while there is still more that needs to be discussed, it'll happen in due time. After waking up from a terrible nightmare and recovering our gear and focus, we see that all this ambush was planned for someone else, but the similarity was much towards Aloy. Not much is known about it, so we'll only have to keep this in mind. We also get to see where Aloy was first found, at the entrance of an underground facility, or as the High Matriarchs would like to call it, Allmother, the reason for their existence, and often worshipped as a god due to the strict traditional beliefs. But Aloy sees it otherwise and tries to access it, only to be denied at the last moment because of some of missing codes. Tirsa doesn't understand any of this but decides that it's best to label Aloy a seeker. Now, a seeker is someone who has the ability to venture to and from the Embrace whenever they please. They are also exempted from the rule of not being able to enter forbidden places, which gives Aloy an advantage to enter places that would otherwise be considered a crime. Now, to rank this position on the hierarchy scale would really depend on whom you bestow it upon. To a commoner, it means it won't be higher than a war chief, as you don't have any combat skills to defend yourself from the outside dangers, regardless of what perks you have, whereas bestowing upon a brave like Aloy would make it higher than a war chief. And since that is the case, we can only assume that the position to be higher. Once at the main gate, we are then ambushed by a new machine known as the Corruptor, which, if you can guess it, corrupts other machines to follow its commands. How original. Now, after defeating this, and we get access to the component responsible for the corruption, which Aloy makes good use for. And with that, we finally leave the Embrace into the world of Horizon. And there are a lot of things that I can say about this, so let's go through them one by one. First, and the most obvious one, is the map itself. It's not large by any means if you put it side by side against other popular open world games, but that doesn't mean it's not filled with detail. It's probably one of the most densest maps I have ever been to be released at the time. Your mode of traveling would be the traditional running, or using a new spear to override certain machines that you can ride on, or use your fast travel pack to travel to the nearest save point if you already visited it and have enough travel packs. There's even a golden travel pack that allows you to travel any visited campfire at no cost, but to get that you will need to reach the Meridian first, which is the home to the Karja and Oseram tribe. So till then you will need to keep fast travel packs in handy, but crafting them is often a pain in the ass, which forces you to explore the map on your own. The vegetation, the blend of the ruins from both the old one's technologies like cars, tanks, buildings, even certain monuments. Every single aspect of this game has a detail that's hard to miss, and many a times I felt the less need to use fast travels and just so I can get to see the view of the world. The seamless connect between nature and abandoned architecture and machinery is something pleasing to watch, not to mention the wildlife that accumulates these places, some organic and some natural, while others completely out of metal, yet both exist in harmony like they aren't different from each other in the role they play in the environment. There are also many amenities scattered across the map from ancient relics like mugs, necklaces, and coins for some reason, and vantage points that show how the world was before it all went to ruins, and a narrator explaining his life back then before again it all went to ruins. This gives the abandoned structures more depth, showing that before this lifeless husk of piled metal was once a marvelous architecture that was adorned by many at the time. There's also these mysterious flowers scattered across Horizon, whose origin is unknown for now but hopefully will make sense later on. The ambience is also what makes the world a great place to explore. During daytime, you get to hear the trees' leaves rustling, the grass flowing with the wind, the sunrise and sunset sweeping across the whole land of Horizon, the calm and soothing music that plays when Aloy explores the vast, barren, yet luscious areas, and the lively activity of seeing people going about their day-to-day chores and machines carrying out their own activities. The details of NPCs are not as much as the first and second Watch Dogs games, but it's still better than just static NPCs doing barely nothing. You can even encounter Braves just by fighting off machines on their own or in a group. Whether you are involved in this or not is your choice, but it's great to see that you aren't the only one who has to battle with the machines all the time. And then there's nighttime, the glow of the machine's eyes illuminating nearby areas, fireflies swarming around you, and the eerie noise that surrounds you. It makes you feel like you're in the midst of an unknown territory, yet the place looks and feels very familiar to you. I love it when there's more activity in the surrounding areas rather than just in particular areas where the devs would expect you to visit more often. Machines here are quite different. Usually, we are used to seeing them as forms of humans or robots trying to mimic humans at best, but here it's completely different. Machines here try to mimic animals instead and adapt their behaviors accordingly. Like in our wildlife, we have deers, antelopes, horses, etc. that are now adapted to machines like the strider, grazer, lanthorn, and many more, being the type of enemies that get startled when they see danger approaching and, on rare cases, out of panic, start charging towards you. There are also types of machines that you can override early on, and some of them, like the strider, can be used as a personal stride to travel to places should you need to. And the controls for them, well, could be improved to say the least. They're janky at best, but when mastered, can be a very useful tool to travel at a much faster pace than usual. They can also be used as a battering ram. Don't feel like taking out a machine? Well, just use one of these bad boys and ram right into them. Not only are you going to deal damage to them, but you're also going to stun them, which gives them a good chance for you to perform a critical strike, which deals massive damage. There are also other machines like the predators of nature. Lion, tiger, eagle are now replaced with ones like sawtooth, stormberg, scorcher, even prehistoric animals like thunderjaw, closely resembling a T-Rex. These are meant to be nature's predators, or at least a recreation of one. Yet despite their traits of being a predator, they are programmed to live in peace with each other and only go hostile against humans. There are only a few exceptions to these machines that would be the corruptor that can act as the leaders by controlling any kind of machine they please, and tallnecks. While their designs are inspired by giraffes, their purpose is completely different. They have roamed certain areas of this place far too long and thus have access to every single detail in each area. Thus a task is simple whenever we see them. We have to climb on top of its head and claim the data, which unlocks several possible save points and areas of interest, making our work easier to locate. However, they don't locate everything, as there are some that still requires exploration to acquire and utilize, making it so that the players are forced to explore the world. They also emit a shockwave once we rappel down, causing nearby machines to get a shock debuff. Certain machines are vulnerable to certain attributes, like how the corruptor is weak to fire as it overheats their core, and it's one of the main weak points, or the fire billowback being weak to freeze as it carries fluid that supports the fire element, and many more. The complexity is something unmatched for each machine, and not to mention that the model is sophisticated on its own, with almost each external part being its own object, and that when enough damage is done, it causes them to fall off and make the machine even more vulnerable to damage. Not to mention certain animals like Ravagers, whose cannons can be knocked off and used by ourselves to our own benefits, or the Thunderjaw, whose disc launches can do the same. It can be said that these machines are not just modeled to be a filler in this world, they are detailed to the core, which explains why there aren't as many robotic animals as you'd expect, mainly because of how sophisticated each one of them are modeled and programmed to behave under certain circumstances. It's fascinating, to say the least, and what makes Horizon World a mystery on its own. Why would something so magnificent and artificially made exist in a world where creatures are meant to exist organically? The more we dive in, the more we can unravel the secrets behind this. But that's not to say these exist without some form of flaws, as no matter how great a game can be, there will always be flaws that can sometimes get in the way. I mentioned this before and I'll mention it again. The riding mechanics in this game is not the best. For instance, once you get your ride, to travel faster you'll need to hold shift, but sometimes your ride starts having seizures and won't bother trying to run. Instead it'll start galloping around like it's Rodeo Houston, and it'll get frustrating. Hopefully the Forbidden West version has all of these fixed. Next is the hitboxes on these machines. When things get too aggressive, their hitboxes tend to glitch and end up being sometimes smaller than they're supposed to be or larger than their usual. But these tend to be limited to certain situations and for the most part doesn't do much anyways. The third, and this could be a bit of a nitpick from my end, is the climbing mechanics. Now yes, I'm not expecting Assassin's Creed level parkour in this game about machines, but sometimes finding a place where you have to climb next is sometimes confusing at best. Many a times I end up trying to reach a climbing ledge only to realize Aloy didn't do the reaching out animation, so I just end up falling to death. Same goes for the jump mechanics. For instance, in this area, for Aloy's height, the rope below isn't really needed, but during the climbing animation, she purposefully shrinks herself to that level to start climbing. Like, come on now, what's the point? What's going to happen if you just skip that and went straight to the ledge? Nevertheless, this is something that just happens to be more often than other walkthroughs that I watched. And another nitpick is the XP system. Now, I have no complaints about it. It's fairly balanced and a great risk to reward. But what pains me is, we know we can corrupt machines that can either be used in combat or for transport, but when we use them in combats, any machine it takes down doesn't give us the XP that we need. It's understandable since it's not us who took it down, but it's something that you worked for countless minutes, spending time trying to sneak up on some of the tougher machines to take over to make your battle easier, only to realize that you don't get the XP. Almost in any other game in existence, regardless of your work the team put in, you do get some, if not all of the rewards since you led them to it. I do understand that it's to make the system fair so that it doesn't become a cakewalk, but at least half the XP, man, come on. And good luck trying to take down enemies far away if you're running this on a low-end system since they don't even render in the first place. So you'll have to shoot at a blank space hoping that it lands on them and not waste your ammo and time shooting at nothing. Which brings my final issue to the game, optimization. Now I'm not sure about this since during my first playthrough, which happened before they announced the remastered version, everything ran smoothly and all the textures and renderings went as expected. But after the remaster announcement, I noticed more lags, particularly in the rendering time, where it would be so bad that during cutscenes people would look like they just came straight out of a PS1 game. This seems to have happened to me several times during my playthrough, and whether it's because of lack of patches thanks to the new remastered version or it's because of my system unable to handle a game like this. But I'll leave it to you guys to decide on that. But that's not to say the game is bad in any way. This wouldn't be a review if I just spent time glazing at how good it is without pointing out the flaws it has within. It's always best to point out the negatives so we can appreciate the positives we get from this game. Just as you exit the Embrace, you get to talk to another brave named Varl, who says that the war chief, who is also his mother, has left with the search party to take down the invaders who massacred our people, and from here we are given two paths to take, either help and find the war chief first, or go on with our main quest. Now if you do the latter, you will soon be locked out from further progression at some point, so you just have to catch up by completing the side quest, which is why I always recommend finishing side quests as early as possible before going on with the main quest. Following the last known location, which is trampled by many dead machines, a lone survivor arrives and informs Aloy of the war chief's last position, which sends Aloy to analyze the spot and track down the trail using her focus, which leads to a cliff with a dead sawtooth. While scavenging for parts, another sawtooth nearly takes out Aloy, but was deferred by a war chief herself named Sona, who was very stubborn and a fearless woman by nature, mainly because of what the wilds have taught her. To be strong in her path and being a war chief herself, she should be a worthy leader. Following Sona, we discover one of the hideouts of the ambushes, which seems to have formed some form of allegiance with corrupt machines. These machines are, as the name suggests, corrupted by the corruptor, and thus can't be overridden by you. Clearing the space gives you more information on their hideout being the Devil's Rings, one of the forbidden places in the Nora tribe. But fueled by revenge and with Aloy the Seeker by their side, they decided to break the taboo and rush the ambushes, which resulted in the victory and the safe return of Sora to the camp. Now, before we proceed with the main storyline, I would like to talk about the side quests of these games. Now, these side quests here do offer some variety, unlike other games that sadly make you repeat the same thing over and over again. While most of the quest does involve finding or hunting something that ends up being more complicated than before and has you running even more to come to a conclusion, there are some that are more interesting than the others, like in this machine, where you'll need to find a missing person, but the person whom you suspect turns out to be peaceful and meant no harm, but plot twist, he does have harmful intent and was among the main people involved in the massacre of the Nora tribe. So with your wits, you evade with his master plan and kill him, leading to everyone know of his hidden deeds and launch an investigation. While it does follow the standard side quest, the story is what sets it apart. It doesn't have much impact on the main questline unlike other video games, but it does give you a break from and an additional way to level up faster. There are also other side quests that you can perform to level up. One of them is the tutorial section, which gives you tasks to complete using weapons that you've acquired, and completing that gives you more XP, which helps you to level up faster, and having more health as a result, making main missions more easier to perform. There is even corrupted zones, which are areas taken over by corrupted machines, and even bandits camp, where clearing those spaces usually means less corruption to take care of later on, and more civilians can take habitation nearby, allowing for fast travel and merchant access, which helps during the late game where you'll have to traverse through a lot of distance. There's also hunting grounds, which are more like training grounds that can help you hone your skills with the weapon you currently possess, with rewards being shards, your main form of currency, coils which can be integrated on your weapons, or outfits to make a very powerful combination of effects, and rare resources which helps in upgrading your storage units for more ammo capacity, more weapons and more resource carrying. They also provide sun medals, which can be used as a hunter's launch mentioned earlier to rise in ranks and become the top ranked hunter of all of Horizon, while giving you access to exclusive weapons that no other merchant would have in possession. And there's a whole nother interesting side quest to this. This again has nothing to do with the main quest, but it gives you so much better and learning experience at what the machine's behaviors are, what their weakness is, and what components we can use to hit and deal more damage and use against them, and many more. In a way, these side missions do more than just keep you preoccupied, and doing these machines gives you rewards that can sometimes greatly benefit you during the main quest line, and also hone your skills in taking down bigger enemies. There are also cauldrons, which are these weird looking shelters. How do you get up there? These act as upgrades for your spears, which you can override much larger and deadlier machines to your advantage, or for easier transportations, all integrated in this game in such a way that it does seem to be more of a punishment if you decide not to do any of these because of how rare some upgrades and resources can be to acquire, if not for their side missions. Not to mention that each side mission does know how to build character. While not on the level of that to Witcher 3, it does come close to it. So my recommendation is to complete all of them, and not only as they're less in number, but they don't take a lot of time and can greatly help you out, especially during the endgame part. Now with Sona safe and sound, we proceed with our main objective, to hunt down Olin and find the reason why he initiated the attack. While doing so, we have to pass by the Meridian, which we discussed earlier was the trade center and home to both Karja and Osram tribe. We notice that the whole place is under lockdown and guards prevent Aloy from entering the place, till Eren intervenes and allows her in. It seems that Ursa, Eren's sister and a well-known and respected brave of both the Osram and Karja tribe, was killed, and till the killer is found, the whole place went on lockdown. Eren, being drunk, wanted to think less of the situation since he doesn't want to be filled with sorrow and hatred as much as Aloy pushes him to investigate Olin's place regardless of what happened to Ursa. While examining, we find out that he has a family who has been held hostage by a certain group of members who would not only set them free if he is willing to help them and get what they want, but also one of them was to find you and take you hostage. This puts him in a state where he has no other choice but to accept the job, thus leading to the massacre of the Proving. After the gathering all the details, Eren asks how the Focus is helping us solve the case and pleaded with Aloy to help in his case as well, find out who killed his sister Ursa. And while Aloy is hesitant at first, she decides to help him later on, which gives another access to the main mission to help Eren, which we'll go about after we find Olin. He'll be located in this pit, along with other members known as the Shadow Karja. These are the members who are devout followers of the former Sun King who believed in sacrifices and all that. And ever since the new Sun King killed the old one, they lived in shadows, and still carried on their beliefs and eradicating mankind to not only become a greater race, but also to please the sun gods themselves with their sacrifice. They also found ways to tame the corruptors so that they can take control of more machines and become an unstoppable force just before taking them out on the focuses. But however, all the focuses, including Aloy's, was soon interrupted by an unknown party. And only Aloy started receiving transmission from another interested party, who seems to know how to use the focus way too well enough to disable and hack into other focuses. After taking them all out, we meet with Olin and ask a few questions. In short, when Olin met Aloy, his focuses start to emit a demonic and scary voice, which he calls Hades, the main antagonist of this game and the one responsible for the advancement of machines in both their size and aggressiveness towards human. It never shows its true identity for now, but hopefully will so later on. And on the question of why does she look similar to someone on the focus, Olin doesn't have a clue about it and noted that he spotted that image at a place called Maker's End, which is our next destination to visit in the main questline. After hearing all the details, you're now given a choice to either kill him or spare him. Now, whichever you choose won't affect the story much, as the next mission in his timeline is to free his family, who are held captive by the Eclipse, which are a smaller group of people within the Shardakaja tribe. They are in direct contact with Hades, the one whom Olin talks about in brief. After freeing Olin's family, the dialogue here plays a little different. If you spared Olin, then the family will have a happy reunion and will retreat to a faraway place to settle down. If you killed him instead, you're only inform him that he died an honorable death and again retreat to a faraway place and settle for good. Not much of consequence here, it just all depends on your personal preference of what you think of Olin. Now, before we head to Maker's End, it's best we complete Aaron's side quest first. Before we proceed, heading to his location, we see that he is fighting against all the machines on his own and only wanted Aloy's help and no one else, since he wants to take revenge on his own. Heading to the place where Ursa was ambushed and analyzing the debris, we can track it back to an old infrastructure where the Osram members were still waiting for ambush, as well as some of the scrappers to take them down. After taking them down and analyzing again, it seems that according to our analysis, Ursa could still be alive. While the body of Ursa still exists at the Meridian, Aloy begs to double check and see if it's actually Ursa's or someone that looks like her, since her face is smashed beyond recognition. Heading back to the Meridian this time, we get to speak with Sun King himself, Avad, who was the one to have slain his father of his brutal ruling over Karja and take over as the new Sun King and unite the Osram tribe as well. Although things are going well, there are some issues here and there which as he claims will take some time to make ends meet. After which Eren confirms that the body was not of Ursa's because of a missing birthmark that Eren gave her during her childhood. So with the information provided, it's time to now find the true kidnapper of Ursa. While analyzing earlier, with the gear that was dropped belonged to the Osram tribe mentioned earlier, which narrowed down the search to exactly one person, Derval, who used to fight alongside Ursa during the old Sun King's reign, but Ursa betrayed him after she realized that what she is doing is wrong, and since then has been planning to plot a revenge on Ursa. This is the key information needed, and all that's left to find his hideout, where one of the king's subordinates, Blameless Marad, mentioned that he has an insider who will be meeting in the place to get more information. Sadly, this doesn't happen, as before we can even get to meet the guy, he was brutally killed in the process by one of Derval's men. But not before succumbing to his death, he decided to draw a map of their hideout using his blood, thus giving the final key to the mystery. After raiding the place and shutting down all trap mechanisms, we now find a barely alive Ursa who, for God knows how long, was subjected to torture. And while we were able to get to her, it was too late as she succumbed soon after. We analyze the room and we find that Derval is planning an ambush on the Meridian, which quickly prompts them all to run and inform the Sun King before it's too late. We later get to examine his room, which he intends to blow up to create a huge explosion. But the quick thinking of both Aloy and Eren led to the explosion happening outside the perimeter, thus everyone is safe. Yet despite this, Aloy's suspicion is still high and informs Eren to check on the castle. While it was a bold move, since following a set of tracks gives access to one of Derval's hideout, with the hole leading straight to the king's courtyard. After following them and successfully killing all his men and neutralizing Derval, the Sun King proposed a waiting period to see what is a reasonable punishment to provide for someone like him, which ends up completing the mission. Now the main people you are to speak again is Eren and Sun King Award to complete the mission. But optionally, you can talk to Derval, who doesn't take your appearance for granted, thus completing the other main quest of saving the Meridian and back to our actual main quest. Upon visiting Maker's End, the ruin is a lot larger than any other ruins we have visited, almost like it's a corporation building on its own, which is now overrun by several Eclipse members. Taking them down or just running past them, you'll still find more, but this time you'll also find a machine that you've never seen before. It's called a Deathbringer. Unlike other machines that represented some form of animals that are white in color, this one doesn't represent any and is black, similar to that of the Corruptor. It seems that these two share some form of similarities. Both can be overheated, which reveals their core, and can take significant damage if inflicted, and both contain fighting equipments that were used in the old age, like the missile launchers, machine guns, etc. After fighting against all of the eclipses and analyzing one of the focuses, we hear from Hades itself. The voice isn't too scary as people claim it to be, but an AI speaking of having a target to neutralize is something to be afraid of. After claiming the key, we then head towards the entrance, similar to the one of Mother's Heart, but unlike the other, this one gives you access inside, which identifies you as Elizabeth Sogbert, the same woman who shares your identity. The inside looks more like a corporate office with desks and computers that are now inactive, and some of the data logs that you can also collect while on the way. But the most interesting ones are the ones on the upper level with three holograms detailing the creation of certain machines. It's at this point we get to know that this is Pharaoh Automated Solutions, a company created to make army level robots to ensure peace and high protection to society, and these machines are their best creation so far. First is the FSB-5 Kopesh, which we call it the Deathbringer. Next is the B07 Horus. While we haven't seen it in person yet, Aloy refers to this machine as the Metal Devil due to its massive and scary looking size. And the last one, ACA3 Scarab, which we know as the Corruptor. This leads us to knowing that the machines that don't look like animals are the ones designed by Pharaoh, and they are meant for military purposes. The only two machines that are alive and confirmed are the Deathbringer and Corruptor. But unlike the Corruptor that's more commonly found and easy to revive, Deathbringers are a bit harder to find and are normally exclusive to certain missions only. While on the way to the top, you can collect this audio log from Ted Farrow, the owner and CEO of Farrow Automated Solutions, who talks about certain lines of codes being corrupted, which leads to his machines, which he unironically calls them peacekeepers, do not respond and go rogue. While he is fully aware of this, he is trying his best as the audio claims. He assures everyone not to take the news seriously and put full faith on his company to bring whatever disaster he has brought upon this world to a swift end. Once you reach the top, you'll find a data center, but before that, if you climb even more high, you can claim something called a power cell, which unlocks a secret side mission which I'll get to in a moment. But till then, let's take a moment to admire the view. Being above the clouds for the first time, shot with nothing inside apart from the mountains at a far distance, is something to show that you are not the only one to reach this level of heights that no one was able to several centuries. But that's short lived since you have a mission to take on. Accessing the data center reveals that it's mostly corrupted except for a few hologram logs which we get to see for ourselves.
Elizabeth, good to, it's been years.
Where's your legal team, Ted?
No need. I dropped all 18 lawsuits the moment you landed. I assume your data confirms this.
Alright, this promises to be interesting.
Perhaps we could have lunch brought in. You know, get reacquainted.
I know you, Ted. You screwed something up, something big, or you wouldn't have eaten the crow necessary to get me here. Spit it out.
There's a glitch in the chariot line.
Your killer robots?
Peacekeepers, yes, those.
So shut them down.
Obviously, Liz, we would, if we could. They're not responding.
Are you telling me a swarm has gone rogue, Ted?
It's worse than that.
Show me the data then. And I'll take that lunch. Alone.
Ted Farrow brought Elizabeth Sobek here, but they hated each other.
Another file has been recovered.
This isn't a glitch. It's a catastrophe.
Fully aware. It's bad.
Bad?
Jesus, Liz.
It's not bad, Ted. It's apocalyptic. You built a line of killer robots
Peacekeepers.
that consume biomass as fuel,
In emergencies.
and you made them capable of self-replication.
Limited, self-manufacture, controlled.
Not anymore. The glitch severed chain of command. The only nation this swarm answers to now is itself.
You think I did?
Everything else is just food. And at the rate it's replicating, Ted, it will strip the Earth bare in 15 months. We're not talking fall of civilization. We're talking extinction.
I get it, Liz. So how do I stop it while it's contained?
It's not contained. It can't be.
You know what I mean.
Right. Before the truth gets out, you mean?
I will do anything you say. Keep working it, and whatever you recommend, I'll do.
I'm gonna hold you to that, Ted.
The Faro robots threatened all life on Earth, but somehow she defeated them. The world of the old ones fell, but life went on, or we wouldn't be here.
The final Pharaoh has been recovered.
Project Zero Dawn. Jesus, Liz. There has to be another way.
If there were a nicer way to fix your mess, I would have proposed it.
But this? This? When I asked you to find a cure, I didn't expect it to be worse than the disease.
It's not, Ted. It may be grim, but it's our only chance. Now sign the proposal.
Sign it? I can't sign that.
Yes, you can.
That? Liz, I cannot in good conscience sign that.
You've got a choice, Ted.
I know.
I am speaking to you from a VTOL en route to U.S. Robot Command. In 15 minutes, I meet with General Harris and the rest of the chiefs.
What? Are you crazy?
Now your choice is what I tell them. Sign, and I'll tell them the wealthiest corporation on Earth has guaranteed the funds necessary to build Zero Dawn. Exactly as I've designed it. Or don't sign, and I will make sure they and everyone else on this planet knows the real cause of the glitch.
Jesus, Liz. You don't have to threaten me. I'll sign.
Look on the bright side, Ted. From here on out, you get to do what you've always been good at. Footing the bill while others get their hands dirty.
God forgive me.
What made her solution so terrible? What did she do to stop the robot?
Executive access detected. Express lift open.
After learning so much, we are still left with so many questions. How did the human race survive if the plague was that horrible? How is it that our ancestors who are much more technologically advanced while we are still in our tribal times? How is it that we end up looking and having the same DNA of a woman who lived hundreds of years ago? All of these leads to one main question. What is Project Zero Dawn? As we leave, the same person who hacked into our focus earlier now comes face to face and talks about in detail many things. He reveals himself to be Silence, a lone traveler who doesn't belong to any tribe as he claims. He has a vast amount of knowledge of many things like from the old ones, that unlike Aloy isn't afraid to wander into the depths of the forbidden places. He reveals a lot of information, albeit after getting confronted by Aloy, but to summarize it, he had a long suspicion that Pharaoh robots were the ones who destroyed the old ones, but couldn't find enough evidence to prove it. But now he does, and still only knows that it has threatened life forms, but not completely destroyed it. He also hints on Liz, which is the nickname for Elizabeth Sobeck, being alive through cryogenics, but it's a theory too far for Stretch to confirm if it's a possibility. He also knows very little about Hades, as no records in history marks the entrance of it or its presence. He is also able to hack and track focuses, similar to how we can hack into machines and use them to our advantage, which would explain why he knows so much, not just about Aloy, but also about the Eclipse. Once done, he recommends us going to the US Robot Command, which is similar to the Pentagon in our area. The place still exists as a ruin under the name of Grave Horde, tangled amongst the Metal Devil, or as we call them, BOR-7 Horus. So this is our next destination. As we head to the Grave Horde, we see long mechanical tentacles, presumably from Horus itself. Once you enter, the usual is swarmed by Eclipse members, but along with them are a bunch of dead soldiers with Operation Enduring Victory plastered all over the place. It's unclear why it's there or what its main purpose is for now, but hopefully later on we get to know its true intentions. After navigating through the base and doing some wall climbing, we enter a big conference room that shows how the Pharaoh robots took over the world. Nothing much is here to discuss. After you move forward, you get to see the true scale of Horus itself. This generation of humans are lucky enough to not witness any one of these monsters in their time, or would have wiped them off entirely after several centuries. We get to see the Eclipse trying to bring the power on it, but the best it could do was summon a near-perfect Deathbringer that could walk. Taking them on and destroying them, we get to access another conference room with the meeting where Liz informs Ted that she would be attending and taking place.
Thank you, Dr. Sobek. You can take a seat. What? You're going to thank her after what she just said? Dr. Sobek has made the situation very clear, General, and given us an option. We should all be thanking her. No, it's just... I mean, my God. Maybe take this discussion offline. There's not going to be any discussion. You saw the numbers. Now, Pharaoh, he'll foot the bill, but his money can't buy the time necessary to complete Zero Dawn. That can only be paid for. Oh, come on. If we upgrade our fleet, crack the code somehow...
Were you not listening? Robots can't do the fighting time. When it comes to hacking, this rogue swarm is an apex predator. Anything automated you throw at it, they will hijack and take over.
But this... We'd be throwing civilians into a meat grinder. Commanders, the enemy we're facing self-replicates faster than we can kill it. And it eats biomass as fuel. Zero Dawn is all we've got.
So we put a railgun in the hand of every civilian strong enough to carry it, show where the trigger is, and point them to the front? How the hell do we sell that?
By giving them something to fight for. Zero Dawn. The top-secret super-weapons program that will save us. So long as humanity holds off the swarm long enough for Dr. Sobek and her team to finish it. The file I'm sending contains the war plan for Operation Enduring Victory. War plan? This is a war crime. It may be ugly, but it's something. Consider the alternative. Dr. Sobek, I've secured use of a decommissioned orbital launch base outside Bryce, Utah as the Zero Dawn staging area. Plenty of space there. When can you get started?
I've already mailed you a list of alpha and beta candidates. Most are foreign nationals or subjects of corporate holdings, so extracting them...
Leave that to me. You'll get your dream team. Count on it.
Then I'll be off.
Orbital launch base. What is that? What did these people do? What did Elizabeth do?
So this operation wasn't meant to take back what's ours, but rather sacrifice themselves for the better of future generation. Sounds kind of messed up, but when you think of it, does make a lot of sense in the real world as well. Any form of experiment conducted in real life requires some form of sacrifice so that it could be used for the betterment of others. True that lives were lost, but nothing great can be achieved in life without some sacrifice, and that is the same case here as well. Once done, we make an exit and we find our next visit to be the orbital launch place where Liz first started Project Zero Dawn. The good news is, it's located. The bad news is right under Shadow Carja's fort, which makes it difficult for them both since Silene can't hack into many focuses and Hades is most likely going to be there since it's the main place for all Shadow Carja. The only way through is to find a weak point in the network and sabotage it, which makes them unable to communicate with Hades or sometimes even with each other. That's the location we'll head to, and oh my god, it's on the other side of the map. How convenient is that? This is why I recommend farming for resources for the Golden Travel Pack, because it's going to save a lot of time. I understand that I did mention how beautiful the world is to a point that I'm willing to skip fast travel just to enjoy the view, but not when the distance is almost the entire goddamn map. Once you head to the location, it seems to be a nice resting place for us now, since our plan is to infiltrate the network's weak spot base so that Silence can hack into all the other focuses and prevent any form of issues during the investigation. Unlike the other places, this one is mainly occupied by the corrupt machines, since you discover later that this is the place where both Healy's, the most powerful Shadow Carja member ever, and Hades both resided. After scaling a tall neck which is overridden by the eclipse, you will need to destroy the module, but Aloy gets distracted by looking at Hades after she realizes that it's residing here. In turn, Hades also notices her and alerts all Eclipse members and corrupt machines after her, which gives this really well fleshed out chase sequence. In many games, chase sequences are linear and you can't take any other path apart from the one designated for you. Here you are free to take any path as long as you survive and make it to the exit. After making a narrow escape and blaming Silene for putting her to near death, we get to head to the main fort of Shadow Carja. And they are by no means a small group as we thought they were. They are a whole nation condensed in one small space because of their exile, and their king is but a young boy named Itamen, the firstborn of the 13th Sun King's second wife, and third-born son of the 13th Sun King, whom we know as the most brutal one and was slain by his second-born son to both the Sun King and his first wife, Avad, the current Sun King of the Meridian. It's not uncommon for rulers this young to take over the throne under circumstances. King David from the Bible took over the throne at an age of 30. Well, it's not a young age. It happened during the time where people could live well up to 300 years of age, so it was pretty young. Or Henry VI, who took over the throne at just 9 months old, before he could even form proper sentences from his own mouth. Or coincidentally, Louis XVI, who became the King of France at just 4 years old and unironically was called the Sun King because he portrayed himself as a central figure and even adopted the sun as his emblem. As the higher-ups were handing over bounties for outlanders to take in exchange for currency, a mysterious woman seems to recognize her and ask for her help, which leads to a side quest. Now hers is pretty short. It involves saving someone whom she believes to have done no wrong but took the blame because the other person was of high ranking. He is also the same person who was giving out the tasks and mentioning rewards earlier. After saving him, we get to save another injured member before realizing that her plan was to bring Itamen to the Meridian and unite with his half-brother Avad, and prevent further issues arising between them, because we get to know that they were kept there against their will and wish to escape from that place as soon as possible without alerting anyone. It's completely optional for you to do so, but does provide more character to both Avad and Itamen, after which you scurry off to a place Silence once dug up to find the secrets of Zero Dawn, only to realize that he has hit a dead end. But thanks to you, both you and him can get answers that were once never possible to be known. Now, get ready for this because there's going to be a lot of information dropped at once. Once you entered, you are greeted into the lobby and once proceeding down, you get a briefing with General Harris, who displays the true intentions of Zero Dawn.
Welcome to Project Zero Dawn. I am General Harris, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States of America. I'm sure you've heard the rumors that Zero Dawn is a top-secret superweapons program, the technological miracle that will save us from the Pharaoh Plague, if Operation Enduring Victory can hold off the robots long enough. The reason I'm sure you've heard the rumors is that I'm the one who spread them, and they are all lies. Zero Dawn is not a superweapons program, and it will not save us. Nothing will save us. And here's why. By the time the glitch was noticed, it was already too late. Nothing could stop the Pharaoh Plague. Nothing can. Its robots will continue to replicate and devour the biosphere. Life on Earth will be destroyed. Our planet reduced to a barren sphere. Global extinction is inevitable. No matter how many we kill, the robots just keep exponentially making more. If we had their deactivation codes, we could shut them all down, the entire swarm. But since their cryptographic protocols use polyphasic entangled waveforms, cracking a code set would take half a century. At best, we've got 16 months. Not exactly what you call a survival option. The destruction of a biosphere is not the sort of apocalypse you can wait out in a fallout shelter or a space station. There will be no Earth left to reclaim. Just a lifeless, toxic rock with arrow robots on it, hibernating, waiting for something to eat. This is the horrible truth behind the lies of Operation Enduring Victory. My lies. Lies designed to inspire millions of innocents to sacrifice themselves in battle. Why? One reason. To buy time for you and the work you will do here. Zero Day, the day that life on Earth exists, is coming fast. It cannot be stopped. The hope of dawn is that something new might come after. But I will leave it to Elizabeth Sobek to shine that thin ray of light into the darkness. Harris, out.
While he does mention what the intentions of the project is, he doesn't explain what it actually is. which would be revealed the more we dwell deep inside, which unfortunately is now surrounded by Eclipse members since the entrance in desperation to enter, she activated the ventilation system, which caused the nearby soldiers to be aware of its existence. After clearing them all and heading into the next room, we get to know what Project Zero Dawn actually is, and it's quite interesting. Project Zero Dawn aims to create life from lifelessness, bringing it into the world where once the majority of pharaoh robots cease to exist because of lack of biomass as fuel. All can be done by reenacting Mother Nature itself as an AI named Gaia, whom the Nora tribe worship unknowingly as their All-Mother, the creator of life, and along with her are 9 subordinates that would accompany her to ensure perfect balance of ecosystems with their and what their purposes would be. Hephaestus is responsible for herbivore type animals and the ones that aren't interested in attacking humans unless provoked. Aether, responsible for carnivore type animals that would turn hostile in the presence of humans. Poseidon, responsible for aquatic animals. Demeter, responsible for giving life on Earth by providing seeds that turn into plants and trees. This is why throughout the map you are able to find these metal flowers that they were once mostly designed by Demeter itself. Artemis, responsible for maintaining the food chain and cycle of all these systems. Apollo, responsible for maintaining the history and knowledge of humans, which would then be passed on to the new generation of humans. And the other 2 are the most important ones. Minerva, which will be working on the background to decode the code that would be later be transmitted across the horizon map to deactivate pharaoh robots once and for all, and Italia, which will act as a womb to nurture newborns into a new world and help develop their senses as well, basically acting like a mother to them all. And then there's Hades, responsible for being a failsafe protocol in case the project isn't heading the right direction, often correcting the path taken and ensuring that it follows the designated route. All these are designed in such an interconnected way that there's no way that any of this would have gone south. And nice to see that these AI models are named after the little gods and goddesses responsible for certain elements and lifestyles of our planet. So we know what this project's intentions are and what it actually is. But what we don't know is why did it fail after so many centuries later? Why are the humans now so tribal as opposed to smart individuals that was supposed to be the main outcome of this project? The more we further proceed, the more we can understand it soon. Once we enter Liz's office, you find the Alpha Registry Code, or in simple terms, the master code that can be used to enter the facility at the All-Mother's place, which will give you answers to the next few main questions. What went wrong in this project and how you came into existence. Silene's believes that you came from a machine and not from a human, which upsets her, but she doesn't deny that it could be a possibility. However, all things turn south as the base gets raided by Shadow Karja and Helios is the one who takes you out, locking you in a cage while you are unconscious. You are then thrown into a pit, which is a tradition to see who's the strongest warrior of Shadow Karja, or for prisoners as a form of punishment. Since you have no weapon at hand, you will need to make this trampler to knock down these pillars, which will give you access to your weapons and needed to take them down. But just as you're being surrounded by more machines, Silence breaks in and saves Aloy. And Silence has a history of helping Shadow Karja in the past, which is hinted by Helios calling him a traitor and revealed to us later on during a small discussion. But Aloy now has to make it back to the Embrace since Helios ordered a mass strike on that area solely to take over Aloy. But even though he got her, he cannot avert the disaster that is about to fall on that place, which becomes your next main objective. Head back to the Embrace and save it all before it's too late. Unfortunately, you cannot fast travel anywhere near the Embrace, so you'll have to fast travel somewhere here to get there faster. You can also see the extent of destruction that is happening at the Embrace, with corrupted machines and Shadow Karja members all over the place. You can take them out, but I would suggest skipping through them and head straight to the checkpoint where machines are trying to make their way into the Mother's heart. After taking out several machines and a Thunderjaw and some Eclipse members, you finally make your way into the facility and repair it using the master code to get access to it. Inside there are no enemies nor any puzzles. It's all meant for more lore dropping, and the first comes in the sign of people rebelling for keeping too long indoors.
Another day has passed.
You mean the lights got dim? I don't want to sleep, Mother!
I know, but it is time to get some rest.
No, I'm king today. What I say goes. I want to see the real sun, not lights and pictures.
You will, in time, children.
In time, in time, in time, in time, in time, in time,
We can relate to this because during the 2020 pandemic, which forced us all to be indoors, caused a lot of frustration for being indoors during a long time. But once the time for them to leave the facility came, because they couldn't sustain them for any longer due to lack of basic resources.
I have no choice but to release you.
But why?
There is no food here anymore.
There's food out there?
We don't know for sure.
Come on, let's go!
I don't know. Mother, can we come back if we're cold?
I'm sorry, but that won't be possible. You will have to support yourselves now and take care of each other.
What will happen to you?
I will stay here and sleep and remember all of you.
What will happen to us?
You will be brave and you will learn.
After going more forward and analyzing one of the data logs, you get to access to Gaia herself.
Elizabeth, this message serves to inform you of an unforeseen and catastrophic anomaly. 3 microseconds ago, the Gaia Prime facility received a data transmission of unknown origin. Its immediate effect was to transform my subordinate functions into unregulated, self-aware entities of a highly chaotic nature. Thus awakened, the Hades function will now seize control of the terraforming system and reverse operations, rendering life on Earth extinct in 53.8 days. For obvious reasons, I cannot allow this to occur. And so before Hades can take control, I am ordering Gaia Prime's reactor to overload. The resulting explosion will destroy Hades. Unfortunately, it will destroy me as well. While this admittedly desperate course of action will avert the immediate crisis, the fate of life on Earth will remain in peril. No central governing intelligence to regulate the terraforming system, it will continue operations for some time, but in an increasingly chaotic manner, and eventually it will break down.
Does she mean the derangement?
You are my solution. I have ordered this cradle facility to use genetic material in cryostorage to gestate a reinstantiation of Elizabeth Sobek, my creator. While high-level directives forbid me from communicating directly to the tribal inhabitants outside the facility, all available data indicates that they will nurture you to physical maturity, whereupon your gene print will allow you to re-enter this facility, obtain one of the focus devices stored below, and view this message. Likewise, your gene print will allow you to enter other facilities, and over time, harness their technologies to rebuild the system core and reboot Gaia. A moment, Elizabeth. This is most unfortunate and unanticipated. In response to my act of self-destruction, Hades has launched a virus to dissolve the code shackles that hold it, that hold all of them in place. They are escaping, but to where? The virus is corrupting data throughout the system. The Alpha Registry at the Cradle facility is one of the files corrupted. But if that is so, the door will never open for you. You will never view this message. Then I have failed. And life will end. No. No, Elizabeth, I know you too well. Somehow you will find a way. In you, all things are possible. Go to the ruins of Gaia Prime. Find the control room, and within it, the Master Override. This will give you the power to purge Hades so long as you find a way to wield it. Do not attempt repair of the system core until Hades is eradicated. Hades must be destroyed. That is all. I only wish that I could hear your voice again.
On the outside, everyone now realizes the importance of Aloy and now worships her as the Anointed One, a new rank that is only bestowed upon Aloy and thus kinda making her slightly above the High Matriarchs, but not so drastically either. She refutes this as in her own words,
First you shunned me, now this? I will not be worshipped. I'm not your anointed. I don't belong to you. There's a whole world beyond your borders, whole tribes, people just as good as you. And it is all in danger. It's a world worth fighting for. Not just here, everywhere.
How can we help?
If you can fight and you're willing, go to Meridian and wait for me there.
While you're here, head to the main facility to fix Gaia Prime. You'll have to fight against several machines, both corrupted and non-corrupted, and make insanely large claims. And once at the top, you see the amount of destruction the self-destruct has caused, making the whole place almost like a dump yard instead of ruins. Once done, you make your way to Cylene's workshop, who apparently stayed here and worked on trying to get access to the contents inside, but couldn't because he didn't have the right equipments and authorization, sadly. Once inside and after navigating for some time, you'll find what appears to be a shrine, and activating it, we see that what has happened to Liz, or Elizabeth Sobeck.
This is Charles Ross. I'm logging in 6 hours after final deployment of Gaia Prime. This morning, an accident seal malfunctioned. Gaia Prime's port seals were designed to close with a seam of less than 2 millimeters. But this one closed with a 10 millimeter gap. Enough for an energy signature to bleed through. Enough for the swarm to detect this facility. Enough for Gaia to be discovered and destroyed. Enough to end the future we worked so hard to make possible. Unless the hatch servos were manually re-engaged from the outside. I'm now switching to a recording of the event.
Well, I'm not going out there. Not what I signed up for. Either we send someone out, or all of this was for nothing.
It should be Liz's decision.
So when is she going to get here?
She said 5 minutes. You don't think... I've repaired the seal.
Seal closure at 1.4 millimeters. Confirmed.
Elizabeth, no. We'll find a way to get back in.
It's not gonna happen. The swarm's too close. It's all right. It's complete.
Not like this. There's so much.
So, happy trails, Liz. And, see you around. Yes. Okay with this.
That was the last transmission. Everything for the hope of life on this planet. And we are all in her debt.
This gives us the answer that Liz sadly isn't alive, and the theory of her going through cryogenics is sadly debunked. But when we get access to the main conference room, the place where all alphas, the ones who are supposed to lead the new generation of people into the new world, are found dead, long and forgotten. You can even see as Aloy opens the room, a gush of wind just barges in, showing the place is devoid of even fresh air. Analyzing the place, we see what truly has happened to them.
I'm locked out of core control. Alpha clearance overridden. What the hell is Omega clearance?
Oh no.
Alpha personnel. Sorry to alarm you, but I need you to listen, okay? To what I'm about to say. This isn't easy. See, please, stop trying to access the sense system, okay? See, what this is about is, I said stop trying to access the damn system. What I'm trying to say is I can't stop thinking about the ones who come after us. Those blameless men and women. We're gonna give them knowledge? Like it's a gift?
Ted, we've talked about this before. Apollo has 3,000 plus fail-safe conditions. Ted, it doesn't need to be like this.
It's gone, all of it, every copy.
A sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice, it's cultural obliteration, you bastard. Millennia of culture.
I'm sorry. Really, I am. Sometimes.
This is why the current generation of people aren't so aware of many things and are mostly living a tribal life, because they weren't bestowed the knowledge the old ones had and was supposed to be given to us, and it's all because of Ted. While for now it's unclear whether Ted is alive, but since he too is of the old ones, we can only assume that he would have passed away at some point, thinking that the new generation of people will now have no knowledge of what the old ones were once capable of. This leads to the new generation of people despising the old ones for their lack of care and connection between nature and themselves, since they didn't know they came into existence because of the old ones. With that, you now claim the Master Override, which is now needed to take over Hades and head back to Silenes, who now says his journey with us is complete and has all the knowledge he ever needs. He thanks us for us and returns the favor, by deciding to reveal how Hades came into existence, and it's all because of him.
The story. Some time ago, I admitted that I'd been involved with the eclipse. But I never told you the full extent of my culpability. The truth is, I was there at the beginning. I found Hades, Aloy, buried on that mountain, trapped in that shattered titan. And I served it. What? It promised knowledge and delivered. Such knowledge, you have no idea.
And in exchange?
I helped create the eclipse. Helped it build a cult, an army to do its will.
Why are you telling me this now?
Because your success depends on knowing this. When I found Hades, the first thing it wanted to know about was the Spire. Not Meridian. The Spire. Now why would that be?
The Spire was created by Gaia.
Which part of Gaia?
Minerva. Its code-breaking module. Gaia built spires to transmit the codes that deactivated the Pharaoh robots, shut down their biomatter conversion systems. Hades wants to send a new transmission. To wake the machines, so they can devour the world all over again.
Yes. Based on what we've learned, that's my conclusion as well.
So the Eclipse, the robots they've resurrected, they're just a means to an end. An army to capture the Spire.
Yes. So Hades can exterminate life all over again. Unless you stop it.
Here we can try to be sympathetic or root to him, but just as how you view Silenes and doesn't do much to affect the storyline. After that we part ways, but not before Silene hands us a spear to use in a combat and overriding Hades. Which brings us to the final showdown. We head towards Meridian to inform King Avad of the disasters that's about to arrive, and the preparations are made quickly but without stirring panic, since that would do the exact opposite of all preparations. The Carja tribe members and some of Aloy's friends make it along the way to arrive and join forces, fortifying the entrance of the Meridian from any outsiders. While at a nearby mountain, Nora Braves and Osram soldiers also preparing for the attack, And this is where, if you play throughout most of the side quests, the interactions with these members would be different, as they would treat you as a friend. But if you didn't do any of those quests, they will treat you with respect and will introduce themselves later on. After a quick rest, we are quickly awakened to see something that looks like the enemies camping and resting before the huge fight. But apparently, these are explosives, and the amount of destruction it caused was massive. Just as Aloy was about to arm everyone ready, an invasion happens at the palace itself, with Heelys leading the main attack, thus beginning the final showdown between Aloy and Heelys. After incapacitating Heelys, he seems to regret a bit on his actions, but for the most part doesn't seem to bother much, on which leads to one of the most anticlimactic kill scenes in the game. No emotion, no overly exaggerated moves, just a quick poke and it's down. It felt funny when I watched it for the first time. Once done dealing with Shadow Karja, we now have to deal with the machines. We get used to one of these awesome cannons that deal immense damage, but take some time to get a good aim at them. But eventually everyone was quickly overwhelmed by the robots, causing them to destroy the entrance and knock out Aloy. In a race against time, she recovers and sprints straight towards the spire and meet Varl, Erend, and Sona. And during this process, the striking contrast to see Meridian up in flames, seeing multiple things that are being demolished. What once was a very strong and powerful looking city with being a trade center for everyone is now suddenly all in crumbles and ruins, like old architectural ruins are. It's amazing to see this great contrast within just a few hours of playing into the game. Now, Erend, Varl, and Sona accompany her in defeating the Deathbringer and other corrupted machines on top of the spire, giving Aloy the chance to override Hades. And while doing so, she gets transported to the inside of the spire, and identifying herself as Elizabeth Sobek, she successfully overrides the command and sends a deactivation code across all of Horizon, deactivating any awakened Pharaoh robots before they're able to cause any mass destructions. And after a grand celebration of victory, we get to visit the final resting place of Liz, which just happens to be her own home. It's unclear how she passed away, since revealing how she looks on the inside makes it seem that she died of young age, but it could be because of the lack of resource supplies from her suit that made her unable to live any longer. Which brings us to a nice conclusion for Aloy to know who her mother truly was at the end. Now the weird part is, if we were to continue the same game, the main quest we once completed would be marked as incomplete and yet to be done. This, I believe, is done to ensure the immersive environment stays intact, instead of making it look like nothing has ever happened. This was the case with any other games, where the ending shows the whole world is destroyed, but when you enter free roam back in the same game, it looks like nothing has ever happened. Pretty weird. Then that would be the only explanation I could think of for now. Let me know if you guys have any other theories for this down in the comment section below. Now if you think that was the end of it, then you're wrong, since there is a small DLC that awaits for us at the Cut, where the Banuk tribe members await for us. The journey to this place is quite interesting. Regardless, you keep going on, as there's no grand entrance of sort, but much of a rock climbing and narrow pathways, similar to that of us reaching the proving ground. The tradition here vastly differs from that of Nora tribe. Instead of worshipping the All-Mother and holding respect for the machines, these people have found ways to keep in touch with the machines and offer sacrifices to them instead. But not like the old Karja though. This one is performed upon dead people who died on the battlefield due to natural causes. And finally, you meeting the chieftain Aratak, who is a fearless warrior and the strongest of the tribe members. They also talk about Daemon infecting the machines and taking them over, similar to what we saw in the main game done by Hades, but this one is a different entity, an entity whom we do not know much for now. And there's someone named Oria, who is a shaman of a particular Verak. Now shamans are like matriarchs, and Veraks are these mini groups within the tribe, like how there are several sports clubs under one sport and one nation. Now Aratak seems to have too much of an ego, as the answers would say themselves, making Aloy a little bit annoyed. So instead, thanks to the Karja trader lore dumping most of the information here, we visit Naltuk, who is a subordinate of Oria, where he is found to be nearby a weird watchtower that not only controls the machine near it, but emits a form of signal that buffs the machine much more than its normal form, and restores their health over time if damage is taken. It also has the ability to completely deactivate our special armor for a short period of time before it starts regenerating. which is something to note if you have acquired the armor. Taking the control tower out isn't a huge problem since either can be overridden, which can cause all nearby enemies to get instantly electrocuted or damaged, or damaging it directly on its weak spot, dealing fire damage instead but at a much smaller radius. After dealing with the machines, Naltuk then mentions of Oriya taking the Shaman's Path, which is basically a path too tough enough to travel that is now only restricted to the shamans since they have a very good knowledge of the path and those who can do it visit the shrine and get some special gems known as blue gems, which they use as souvenirs, but we use them as another form of currency to get Banuk exclusive weapons. Now Aloy, being Aloy, manages to cross the path and enter the shrine, which is filled with audio logs and data logs of the old ones, and a puzzle which is much different from the one we are used to. To solve this, you'll need to redirect the power to either take control of the node or to the other side of the node to get access, which after we do, we see Oriya trying to reach out to something or someone, and is stunned to see that you made it, thinking that the path particularly to her location is sealed off by the spirit as she claims. We demonstrate to her how we did it, and we get to see an AI, which she terms as spirit, being taken over by another AI. Now we know that something similar to Hades is taking control here, and it's our duty to destroy it. Oriya has history with the spirit during the Red Raids, the one where the 13th Sun King went on his killing spree. She hid from the Karja there, and the spirit locked all the doors, ensuring no one gets access to her location. And in return, Oriya got several parts and fixed its issues whenever it had any. That's how their bond grew. Another small detail I forgot to mention is we see all of the Banuk members have these blue veins running across their bodies. And you know who else has that? Silenes. So naturally, it's safe to assume that he was a Banuk member as well, which we do inquire, but unfortunately, even though people know who he is, they refuse to speak about him, since all shamans took an oath of silence to not speak of his matter to anyone else. With that in mind, you need to head over to Thunder's Drum Mountain, since that's where both the spirit and the demon reside. But is it possible because Aratak, who is the chieftain, wouldn't allow so, which gives a great idea to dethrone him and become the chieftain yourself. To do that, you are given 3 options to do so. Prove yourself at the hunting grounds, help the Banuk members by taking down a bandit camp, or talk to one of Oriya's friends who would help you out. Now which of these you would do would depend on you, but to be quick, I went with the hunting ground to get my acceptance. And after some good lore dumping on knowing that the Banuk were the first to introduce these type of trials, we head back to the main camp and see that we are now become the talk of the tribe, which gets Aratak's attention, and we challenge him to the position of a chieftain, with the vouch of Shaman Oriya, where we get to know that they both are apparently siblings. Aratak isn't allowed to refuse this challenge, so it begins. The rules are simple. Take down machines and trigger checkpoints before your opponent does, and at the final stop, both will have to deal with the extremely tough creatures, and whoever activates the checkpoint first is considered a chieftain. The battle seems to be going well, with Aloy marginally leading over Aratak, but at the final destination, the members of the challenge were ambushed by large machines. Both Aloy and Aratak took down the machine, and according to the rules, since the final round has been interfered, it's called off. But Aratak saw what we were capable of and declares us chieftain, with us giving instant access to Thunder's Drum, where Aloy, Oriya, and Aratak upon request were set towards and access and free the spirit from the daemon nearby the place. Nearby the place there is a small camp that you can rest before the raid, and you can also speak with Aratak and Oriya before commencing it. In short, Aratak gives his gratitude while Oriya drops a huge lore about Silenes.
Now that I'm chieftain of the Werak, I don't suppose I can order you to tell me about Silence?
Aratak would never have presumed to grasp for a secret of the Conclave, but you are not Aratak, and if you have dealt with Silence, your need is well apparent. Silence came to Ban-Ur from the distant north, a young shaman of the Owl's Watch, a remote Werak that rarely comes south to parley.
Silence was a shaman.
He was, or at least when we sent runners to ask the Owl's Watch, they said he was. His knowledge of the machines was beyond compare, and he was hungry to trade what he knew to the rest of us. It didn't take him long to gain the trust of the Conclave, and eventually, an invitation to attend.
What about you? Did you trust him?
No. But he impressed me. He carried himself with poise and authority. I wanted to learn from him, but that was not to be. He was granted knowledge of our most sacred meeting place, the frozen caves of the Malmstrom, a month's march from Banur. He met with us there, as is custom at high winter. But when we next returned, the caves had been looted. Relics of the old world stolen. Holes cut in ice and metal.
Yeah, that'd be Silence, all right.
He vanished with the spoils. We sent our best trackers after him. None returned. And when we checked back with the Owl's Watch, those who had vouched for him were gone. As though he never existed. Some in the Conclave began to doubt he was even Banuk to begin with.
And what do you think?
He committed an unforgivable sacrilege. He's unscrupulous and dangerous. But also brilliant, skilled, and knowledgeable without equal. Except, perhaps, for you. Anyone else I would warn off, but you may be able to treat with him safely. Just don't lower your guard.
I'll keep that in mind, Horea. Thanks.
Which makes Silence a person who would do anything to get any form of information that would be useful to him. But only to Aloy he shows some sympathy, since she is the key for him to get knowledge, and without her, he wouldn't be able to do anything to get anything use of it. Once we're done and enter the facility by triggering an alarm that forcefully opens the door and clearing some machines, we notice a lot of dead Banuk members on the path, which leads to the reveal that they once tread on this place and was quickly overwhelmed by the machines, and nearly everyone was killed. Except for a few survivors, we are given two paths to take, a longer but safer route or a shorter and dangerous route. I would suggest going through the dangerous one as it helps you level up faster and gives you more experience in taking down tougher monsters later on. Once we're through, we see that the AI spirit is called Cyan. It doesn't seem to be made under the Gaia initiative and must have been made long after. Its purpose for now is unknown apart from a brief mention of its capabilities to predict when the volcano eruption will be, but it's not enough to know what it's truly capable of. We see the extent of corruption the daemon has caused to bring Cyan back to its existence. And to bring it back, we'll need to overwrite some cores and get snippets on who this daemon is, which is in the second recording. We get to know it's Hephaestus, which is responsible for the creation of herbivore-type animals, and is now one of the machines that went rogue during Gaia's protocols. And it could be one of the main reasons why we're seeing more dangerous machines, and the ones that aren't herbivore by any means. It's unclear what its motives are, or why it's even doing it for now, but for now we'll need to stop it no matter what. In the next data point access, we notice that Hephaestus is benefiting from the natural geothermal energy, and if we cut its access from it, it'll cease to exist, which is now our main battle plan to take over. Once we reach the core where both Hephaestus and Cyan reside, and overriding it to some extent, we realize that it's actually a cauldron that we're infiltrating, and the only confirmed way to free Cyan is to override the cauldron itself, which has become more risky as hints of new fighting units have been released in response to this infiltration. Once you reach the core to find this new fighting unit, which is really strong, and with the control towers popping out every few minutes to aid the battle, it is one tough one. But after defeating it, we try to override the cauldron, but sadly get electrocuted during the process. Aurea, in desperation, decides to risk it all and override the cauldron to its highest limit possible, freeing Cyan from Hephaestus. But the amount of damage done to Aurea is too much to bear, thus ending her life, while being on her brother's arms. With no time to mourn as the place is crumbling, both Aloy and Ertag make a close exit out of the place, sealing it completely, which makes it hard for anyone to even visit the place again. Once outside, Ertag plans to visit Aurea's retreat place where she and Cyan would meet often to hear her words from Cyan one last time. While emotional throughout the process, even after knowing that despite their hatred for each other, she still had faith that Ertag would be the one to save Cyan if it ever was in trouble. Holding his tears, he leaves the facility and informs of Aloy's arrival, and we get some great backstory of Cyan. Cyan was made in an attempt to aid in defeating Pharaoh robots long after Gaia was completed. Hence, Cyan was programmed to be a quick to decision and portray little emotions to every decision made. However, since all AIs went sentient after the fall of humanity, Cyan started to gain more emotion, showing signs of loneliness and compassion towards others. The creator of Cyan was a very interested student of Elizabeth Sobek, who was responsible for the creation of Gaia. which explains why, even though it knows so little of Elizabeth Sobeck, its model bears a close resemblance to Gaia in both their actions and calls. How Cyan got hacked was pretty simple. It received an unknown transmission after so long of isolation, and desperate enough to seek some form of connection with the outer world, it accepted the transmission. But this was a fatal mistake, as the transmission soon took over Cyan and used the nearby cauldron for its home, mainly for its natural energy source. Hephaestus' intentions are unclear, but science speculates that because humans are involved in killing its creation, the very thing it was designed to do to regulate life on Earth, and since it becomes sentient on its own, it started to go rogue and in return create more dangerous machines to combat the humans. This could be the reason, but it's still unclear what its true intentions are, as it wasn't revealed in the game. After the conversation, Cyan asks Aloy a favor, as it knows that AirTech will soon bring many more people into the place, and asks how to deal with them. Here your response can vary, but the end result is the same. Slowly expose them to the truth, and whenever the time is right, and not to a point where they start worshipping it as a god. Once outside, Ertak is seen mourning for the loss of Oria, and reclaims the title of chieftain back from Aloy, as she has other places to be besides the Banuk. And Ertak will ask one last favor, to clear all the new fighting units Hephaestus released into the wild before they claim more lives, thus ending the DLC. Nothing much happens after you clear them, honestly. You just get to meet Noltuk, who now becomes the new shaman replacing Oria, and applauds you on taking them down. With this comes to an end of Aloy's adventures on the Nora land. Yet there are still many rogue AIs out there, so while her adventures here are done for, in the other parts of the world it still persists, so her journey is not yet over. Horizon Zero Dawn, if anything, proves one point to all open world games. You don't need to have the most largest maps of all or the most complex mechanisms to engage the people who just want to play the game. All you need is a reasonably sized world with great detail placed in each corner to make it possible for you to explore the world from end to end without getting burnt out. To Team Guerrilla, if they are watching this video, I thank you for not scrapping Horizon Zero Dawn and putting much love and effort into this game. You can tell just by playing it how wonderful everything has been made, and it's not done for cash grab by any means. It's more of a passion project instead. With that said in mind, I can't wait to hop into the next game, Forbidden West, and see what it has for us both in story and gameplay wise.